Good morning, Lynn Christian at Soul Salt, bringing you a strong start to your day. And today we're talking about communication styles. Day in and day out, you and I are communicating. We're talking to other people, we're sharing ideas, we're asking questions, we're telling directions, and we get jaded, we get confused in how effective we are or not. Now, there are four communication styles in total. 3 are subpar, 1 is effective. The question is, where does most of your communication land? Are you really hitting the mark, or are you missing the mark? And that's a good question to stop and ask ourselves today, because Judith E. Glaser, the woman who wrote Conversational Intelligence, did research that tells us 9 times out of 10, our intention, that mark we try to hit when we're communicating, gets missed. That means we don't hit the bullseye. We might be somewhere on the target map, but we don't hit our intended mark. How come? Well, it has to do a lot with our communication style. And before I get into those 4 communication styles and telling you more about those, let's talk about how come communication is so darn important. Here are some things you may not know. Our communication style, if it is highly functional, gives us strong, stable interpersonal connections, which have a positive impact on our physical well-being. The opposite is true. If we have really poor communication styles, we actually are infringing on our own physical well-being. Next, those of us who feel connected to other people, we have lower rates of depression and lower rates of anxiety. Those of us who have meaningful connections with other people because of our communication styles, we live longer. If we have good skills and we can connect with people in our conversations, we actually have a correlation between our conversation style and our success and satisfaction in our career. And not only there, but those of us who communicate well, we have stronger environments and stronger loving connections with the people in our family and our friends. So there are some good motivations for you and I to take a look at our communication styles and wonder, am I being as effective as I hope that I am? Here are the 4 styles. There's passive, passive-aggressive, aggressive, and then there's assertive. The first 3, like I said, they're subpar. And if we spend most of our time there, our communications are actually going to be detrimental to a lot of aspects of our life. So let's jump into these. What is passive communication? Well, passive communication often happens when we find ourselves having a hard time making eye contact. It also comes into play when we have a hard time saying no and we say yes to everything. When we just go with the flow with other people, and a lot of times people who are passive have poor posture. Now, here's some ways that it may play out if you're in a passive style. You say things like, oh, that didn't really matter that much, or I just want everyone to get along. Let's just get along here. So you're really brushing things passively underneath the carpet until all of a sudden there's a big bump and somebody has to talk about that bump under the carpet, and hopefully it will be you. Now, there's another style that's not as effective, and that's the aggressive. And I mostly run into people who are aggressive who say, I'm just a direct communicator. And we use that as an excuse for running over the top of people. Aggressive communications just really goes on the other side of the spectrum from passive communicators. These people are usually in your face. They don't know they're bullying when they bully. They really have an intention of having everything be about them, so they flood themselves and insert themselves so that they take up a lot of time in conversations. They talk over people, they're poor listeners, they interrupt, they control, they make demands, they point fingers, they stare, they frown, they criticize, and really they have a basic attitude of it's my way or the highway, or they're really addicted to being right. I've got to be right, so I've got to just keep asserting my opinion. Also a subpar style. Now notice while you're listening to me, we all fall into these 4 styles. The question is, where do you spend most of your time? Because where you spend most of your time is going to determine the kind of results you get in your communication. Okay, the next one, passive aggressive communication. This seems passive on the surface, but there's this little burden, this little poking, this little pricking that comes with the passive aggressive people. Sometimes after dealing with them, you feel worse off and you can't really pinpoint how come. Passive aggressive people use a lot of sarcasm. I'm here to say today that sarcasm has no place if you're trying to build strong connection and trust. Sarcasm is really a passive-aggressive tool for someone who's being upset inside and they don't know how to deal with their internal upset. So they send little spokes and pokes and pricks out to everybody else. A passive-aggressive person, they have a big gap between what they say and what they do. Their words and actions don't align. When we're in passive-aggressive mode, our facial expressions say one thing, our words say another, and our actions may even say another. Passive-aggressive people, when we're in that position, we often find it hard for ourselves to acknowledge our own emotions and to own what's going on with us. Okay, what is the effective way of communicating? It's being assertive, not aggressive, assertive. Assertive means that we offer effective, healthy ways to express ourselves. We believe in mutual success, mutual honesty, trust, and respect. We have the ability to say what we need, what we want. We can say yes when it's appropriate, no when it's appropriate. We use I statements instead of you and pointing our finger. We say things like, I notice this happens for me when this occurs. And then they may make a request. The ability to maintain good eye contact and connection with people. The ability to say you're sorry when you are. The ability to be responsible for your own opinions, your own life, and to respect that in other people. Now, the good news is communication is one of the things that is, if we work on it, and sometimes it takes a little more work than others, it's something that can change. And I'll tell you this, when we change our conversations, we literally change our lives. I've written a blog that gives you more information about this that Shannon will make a link to that you can look at and read deeper. The challenge I'm giving you today to strong start your life is to see how much more time you can spend in the assertive side and less time in the passive-aggressive, passive, and aggressive side of communication. Do less of those, more of the assertive, and be gentle with yourself. You can't change overnight. But if you do, change consistently, you will find that when you change your conversations, you literally have changed your life. Best wishes for this week. Being a better communicator. Take care.